Well, thanks for taking the time out. Um, this is coming out. So the team episode's coming out next Wednesday, and then your one's coming out the Wednesday after.
Okay, cool.
So you have plenty of time to message me and be like, "Oh, you take that bit out."
I'm not, dude. I'll say whatever I say, and you can put whatever you want up. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Where did you grow up? Have you always lived there?
Yeah, I've always been. Well, I grew up in Rich Hill, just about 5 miles from Portadown. Lived there for most of my life. Left to join the military, got injured, came out, fell into modeling, which kind of like took me all around the world and allowed me to travel a bit and live in various different places. Got fed up with that, went and did a degree, did a master's, went and got an MBA, worked in the corporate world for a few years, didn't like that, and then decided, you know what, my passion's in CrossFit. I've like loved training. Came home back to Portadown after probably 10, 12 years, and then opened the gym and haven't looked back.
Right. I'm just going to go back to the beginning of that and ask about 45 questions. What age were you when you joined the military?
19.
And what branch or what type of?
Royal Marines.
Okay. And why that?
Again, just how hard they push themselves.
Had you relatives like in military or anything?
Yeah, so we have some relatives. Don't really go into much details of that because of the Northern Ireland situation, but yeah,
that's fair.
Have family and stuff that have been in the military before. Yeah.
Okay. And what injury did you get?
I tore my patellar tendon, so basically took my kneecap off the bone.
I know a guy that did that recently. Yeah. Is that the stopping injury?
Yeah, it's whenever I was basically had a pack on my back and I was like moving pretty quickly and then twisted and went to stop myself and the thing just snapped. That was
that. That needs surgery, doesn't it? Isn't that the one that you kind of have that quick? Okay. And what age were you? What age were you when you went to join?
19.
And what age were you when you got injured?
19.
Okay. So how long were you into training?
6 months. So coming close towards the end of it, but
okay. And these things there was no you couldn't go back, or you just?
Yeah, I mean they gave me the option to go back in 3 years as long as the knee was looking good, but at that stage, the kind of modeling thing had kicked off, and it was like, okay, well, you know what to do. I don't really like this modeling thing. Like, you know, it wasn't anything I wanted to do. I kind of fell into it, but it earned good money, and it was like, okay, you know, let's pursue this and see where this goes because the money's pretty good for all you have to do.
And how did that happen? Someone like stop you in the street or what?
Yeah, I kind of got scouted in a gym, and then from there, like I had a small agency, and then they entered me into Men's Health, like cover model competition, because at back then they were kind of like, you know, they were trying to find out if they could get somebody from Ireland or the UK to be on the cover of Men's Health, because, you know, we're all supposed to be pasty and bad teeth and not in shape, etc. And I know that's obviously changing nowadays, but so I think it was my mum put the entry in, but the agency had a little bit to do with it. And then I went through all that there and actually won the whole thing, got on the cover of Men's Health. And then when you have a thing like that in your book, then other companies book you, and all of a sudden it was like bigger companies like Calvin Klein and D&G and Umbro and various different things. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't a career I really enjoyed that much, but it was a chance to earn some money.
I'm just seeing if I can find it. And God, that is bizarre. I've never heard that. I see. The thing is, I actually don't know a lot about you because you're like a fucking enigma. I was trying to describe to someone else. I was like, it's like getting. I was looking for a picture of you, like last week, the other day, and it's like looking for Bigfoot. It's like you're always in the background. You're always blurry. Yeah. You're always like just slightly out of focus, and it's like, oh, that would be a good picture if he's in focus. Yeah. Which I feel like you do that on purpose, I assume, do you?
Yeah. I spent a fair bit of time, you know, on billboards and stuff. You know, I was in billboards in Belfast and Dublin, London, kind of all over. Like, really, it wasn't something. I mean, you've met me. I'm pretty introverted. like, you know, it takes a lot to make conversation out of me. I'm not flashy. I don't like try and put myself out there. So once I was done with the modeling career, it was kind of like, you know, I don't want to be in any way like known for anything or be in any sort of public eye at all. But obviously with social media and stuff like that, you know, that's kind of changed for everybody nowadays. But yeah,
yeah, not you. Like, you still don't put anything up.
No. I have opinions on social media that probably most people don't agree with, but
go on.
I think social media is a destruction of society.
How
and
so?
I understand how necessary it is. I understand for businesses, and you know, if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't be doing this with you. You wouldn't have a popular podcast. But at the same time, if you look at the data on mental health problems, on, you know, teenage suicide, on stuff like that, I understand that social media has a place, but I think at the minute it's not controlled in any way enough. And for me, it's hard to be a part of something that's causing so much destruction.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. They're talking about bringing in like laws that, I don't know. It was like at the start when I heard about it, I was like, "Oh, that's good." And then as they kept talking, I was like, "Wow, that just sounds a bit shit." Though it was like, "Oh, you're going to have to prove your age." But one of the ways you could prove your age is someone can vouch for you. And I was like, "Sure, what's the fucking point in that?" Like, it's like, "Oh yeah, that's like when you go up to the nightclub and it's like, yeah, he's 18." It's like, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have issue with it from that perspective. I think that my main issue with is how fake everything is on it, and how young, not even young people, even older people, and people my age, are influenced by it and think that their life is shit, and, you know, they're not doing very well because everything on social media looks so amazing. So, you know, I think I've heard of maybe the Scandinavian countries are putting watermarks on anything that's been filtered. You know, so
yeah.
I would agree with something like that. I think that could make social media acceptable. You know, that everybody that's taking in all this information is very aware of what's real and what's not.
Yeah, it is tricky. Like we do it in school. Like, we explain to the kids in school about, like, sure, it's like they don't listen to you when you're teaching them maths. What's the fucking chance of them listening to you when you're okay, so you're that is fucking insane. So you're on billboards, like, that's mad. What's it like how did it sit with you at the time, say, driving and seeing like yourself, like your face, body and everything up on, like, are you like, oh, that's cool, or at the start are you like, oh, that's cool, and then it grates on you, or
there's a couple of different things happening over my career that are probably quite notable in terms of, I did a second Men's Health cover and wasn't happy with it and went home and bought all the copies in all the local stores so no one would see it. So, you know, there's that aspect of like constantly being on view and not being happy with yourself. And I did have some like pretty bad body image issues and stuff like that when I was younger. And then there's other things, like I did a shoot for Dulux paint where I was basically naked and pouring paint all over myself. And I was in Dublin. I was actually going down to another job in Dublin, and I hadn't seen the end result. And this is the only time I've ever crashed a car. I went into the back of somebody looking at myself on a billboard.
Do they get out and be like, "What were you doing?"
Yeah,
like, you just don't explain it to you. You're just like, I was distracted.
Like, you know, and he actually did find it quite funny. But yeah, I think it was because it was a naked shoot and I was just covered in paint and I hadn't seen it before. Yeah. I just like literally was staring at it and like went into the back of somebody.
So around then you were probably what, like 2021?
That kind of lasted so right through to maybe I started my education at like 27 or so. So
okay, so about six or 7 years, I suppose.
Yeah.
And had you like issues with how you thought you looked before doing that, or because of doing that?
Probably both. You know, I was the kid at 12 years old who asked for a weights bench for Christmas from my parents because, you know, you watch all these programs or movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jean-Claude Van Damme, and you're like, maybe that's the way a man's supposed to look. And I kind of got a weights bench, started working out at 12 years old, and just kept going and going and going. Eventually, my parents got me like a membership in the local gym because I couldn't get any more weights to fit on my bar at home. And that was probably to do with the fact that I was a bit of a skinny kid. Wasn't very attractive, you know, had really, really bad skin, really, really bad hair. And that definitely was, you know, part of the reason why I think I got into fitness and pushing myself that way. But then being judged every day on how you look, you know, in some ways it was good because it pushed me to be better, but in other ways it was really, really bad because it was never good enough, you know. So you could turn up to a shoot and be told that you had to go home for a week, eat more food because you're actually too lean. So they have an ideal, prototype, essentially human, of what they want to see. And if you don't fit into that mold, then you're just not good enough. And that can be hard over the years to actually deal with.
And do they like, I'm just curious how you deliver that news. I assume there's different types of people that do it, but like, is there are you an object for a lot of it? Is it like,
you're
are you being talked about like you're not there? Like,
there's maybe a photographer assistant, an art director, maybe some sort of like high up person from the company working there, and you are just told what's wrong, or you're told what's right. You go to a casting and they love your look, they love your energy, etc., and they think you're great, and they book you and they fly you all around the world. Or it's the other way, and you're just not good enough, and you're off to the next casting to try and get another job.
And is your like life outside of, say, like outside of those shoots, is it the classic like model life where you're just like going around jet setting and like, no?
Nah. Like, I'm 5'10", so a 6'2", maybe catwalk and stuff like that could have been for me, but at 5'10", like, fitness modeling had to be the way that I could make the most money and get the most work. So you can't really be living that lifestyle when you got to stay in such good shape all the time. Like, it's really, really, really difficult to maintain, a six pack, 365 days a year. It's hard work.
And this was all like Lobo gym stuff, was it?
Yeah, pretty much bodybuilding stuff. Did a little bit of endurance training whenever I wanted to get really lean and stuff like that, but pretty much your global gym bodybuilding, chest.
Were you just like making it up yourself as you go along, like?
At the start, I just followed, like your normal fitness magazine. You'd look in the magazine and you go, okay, that's what you do for your chest, and you do the exercises. And then I suppose over the years, I started at 12, probably by 18 or 19, I had enough, knowledge of my own body to kind of just make up my own stuff, and I knew like how to do drop sets, supersets, trisets. I knew how to like overload muscle groups to train them better. So I kind of just formulated my own stuff.
Yeah. And what did you go back to study?
Marketing and business.
Okay. Why business?
I think part of it was, so being a model, I was kind of like viewed as, not the smartest person in the world. And I enjoyed the concept of the marketing and business behind, the adverts that I was doing. So like, I enjoyed the whole seeing start to finish and why they were doing the certain adverts. So I guess that was part of the reason for wanting to go down that avenue. And I knew it would challenge me because I hadn't really done a huge amount intellectually. So learning about that stuff, I knew it was going to be a bit of a challenge. And I've always kind of like seeked out challenges in anything I've ever done. I always want to like see how far I can push something. So yeah, I just picked marketing business, jumped into it, did it for 3 years, got it first, then went and did a master's in business, and then did an MBA.
What do people, when you told like your mom or whatever that you're going to join the army, or the military, what was the reaction?
Mum and dad probably weren't the happiest, but they've always supported all of us. I've got 3 brothers, and no matter what we want to do, they'll support us. If they're not happy with it, they'll still support us. That they'll be vocal and say, we would prefer you didn't do that. But they always supported everything we've ever done. Like me,
was that out of fear in case something happened? You like?
I imagine so. I'm not a parent. I mean, you're a parent. I imagine you could probably put yourself in the situation easier, and what would be your emotion if the same thing came across?
Yeah, it'd be a hard pass.
Yeah.
Are you the youngest of your brothers, or?
Oh, I'm the eldest.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to get a hold on you, like, so like you kind of thought you were like small and unattractive, and got into the gym and like tried to change how you looked and tried to look a certain way, and then like it turned into a career, I suppose, in a roundabout way. And then people thought you were stupid, so you went to college and went to the highest rung you could, I suppose, on what you were doing.
Yeah.
Like, you obviously cared what people thought, or your perception of what people thought, I suppose, of like in each of those stages. Like, is that something? Do you still do that?
I don't think I do it anymore. Definitely, probably up to the age of 30. I definitely cared what people thought, and wanted to be seen a certain way. And if people saw me in a way that I didn't agree with, I needed to change that. But probably CrossFit's been a great thing for me. I've learned a lot over the years, and now I just kind of, there's so much crap and shit out there that like I just get on with my own thing. I don't care what people say. I don't care. I know people will say, "Oh, he's a bad coach," or he trains his athletes too hard, or he does this, that, or the other, and it genuinely doesn't bother me. I have a few peers in the sport that I get on with very well, and as long as I have their respect, I don't really need the respect of anybody else.
Yeah, it's interesting because they're things I've heard, so it's interesting like that you've heard them as well. Is funny.
Yeah.
Like where do you think that comes from? Is that just like the classic like Irishism of not wanting someone else to do well, so like that kind of like dragging down kind of thing, or do you think it's just a coaching philosophy like clash or what?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know why people say the things they do. I mean, probably there's some of that. He's getting all the success. Why is he getting all the success? Bring him down. There's also part of it's probably true in terms of my first 4 or 5 years of coaching. I hadn't been an elite level athlete coach. I kind of fell into it by accident, and I've learned a lot over the years. I wasn't very empathetic. I used to tell athletes, if you don't need surgery, then don't tell me about your injury. So, and I pushed everybody I trained really, really hard, and it was my way or the highway. So there's definitely elements of truth, and that probably still carries through to this day. But I'm not that person anymore. I'm like a little bit more chilled out. I'm more empathetic to my athletes. I very much ask them what they want or what way they want to train, or it's down to them, and I just facilitate what they want to do and facilitate their goals. Whereas I think before I was very driven to achieve things for the gym and for me, and kind of forgot maybe about the athlete. But now I'm pretty much athlete focused and centered, and whatever they want to achieve, I'll try my best to help them get there.
Yeah. See, how did you find CrossFit? It was just like .com kind of story?
Yeah. Like this must be my 14th or 15th year. So it was just .com. I had a pretty bad back injury. I went and cycled across this and ran across the States for like a charity event. So like 5,500 miles. And that pretty much broke my body up pretty bad. And when I came home, I was doing like some day training runs, and I came off the bike, and I actually managed to fracture one of the vertebrae in my back.
Wow. So that was probably just like poised to happen after everything, was it?
Potentially, yeah. So then I'd like attended various different physios and different back specialists, and nobody was getting anywhere. And I found this guy that was pretty much into like functional training, and said, you need to get back to deadlifting and squatting, all the things that people are telling you not to do. You need to get back to it. So then I just did like a little bit of research, and 15 years ago, if you research, what is fitness, the Glassman article came up, just like everybody's seen. So then I saw that, looked really, really interested, and kind of looked like something I'd be interested in, and then just started .com. Just followed it in a Globo gym for a few years. Then I was in London, joined into in Clapham. Was trained there for a little bit, did my level 1, trained in another few different gyms that weren't like official CrossFit affiliates, and then that kind of led me into coming home to do my own thing.
Who gave you your level 1? Can you remember?
Chris Spieler, Carl Stedman. Can't remember anybody else.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the real OGs of CrossFit, and these were like games athletes. Like Chris Spieler is a complete legend, and yeah, he at that stage when CrossFit was in its growth spurt, you had Matt Chan, Chris Spieler, even Rich Froning was doing level 1s at one stage. So yeah, you had like all the real OGs of elite CrossFit were actually funding their lifestyle by doing level 1 certs at the weekend.
Yeah, Chris Spieler, there's a man a lot of people have opinions on. When so was the plan like after you did your level 1, was the plan like, okay, like Portadown needs one of these? Was that like
the level 1 was more just like, I've always done education and fitness. I've done like various different qualifications over the years. I try to read like 20-25 books a year. But like the level 1 was more just, okay, I want to see what this is all about. I want to see what their philosophy is. It was never really I'm definitely going to open a gym. And then I suppose like when I was coming home from at a corporate job in London, when I was coming back and forth with that, I had a few close friends here who were like CrossFit seems to be taking off. I think there was only CrossFit Northern Ireland and CrossFit Derry at that stage in Northern Ireland. I think I was the third, and they were like, we would definitely join your gym if you open one. So that kind of gave me the little push into to open it, and then I opened up 80/20 in 2013.
What was a corporate job in marketing, or?
It was for a company called Reckitt Benckiser. So they're like a big conglomerate that own like Nurofen and one of these big companies like Unilever and stuff like that who own lots of sub companies. It was for them. So
lucrative.
Yeah. Yes.
Enough to go home and open a gym.
Not going into details, but yes.
So then you open 80/20. Like, was it because let's say I've been to this is the third iteration I was at, isn't it?
Yep.
So the first version, was it like small, like dingy? Was it nice? Like what can you remember of it?
The first iteration was about 1,500 square foot. It had one shower for everybody to share, one toilet. And in fact, you know what? It didn't have toilets. It had communal toilets outside in like the business park we're in, so it didn't even have its own toilet. But we outgrew that in like 6 months. And then we moved into a building pretty much the same size as the one you're in. It just wasn't as in good condition, and it wasn't as a nice area. It didn't have good parking, etc. And we were there for maybe 6-7 years, and then we moved to the current building, which I'm pretty happy with. It's kind of like I've turned it into my dream CrossFit facility. If I was an athlete, that's where I would want to train. It's got everything I would want to train with. So I don't think we'll move. We've got a long-term lease on it, and I'm pretty happy there.
Yeah, no, it is very nice. It's very nice. So when you opened your first one, did you hire someone else straight away, or did you just do it all yourself for a while?
I did it all myself until I pretty much burnt out. So got to the point where I was doing every foundation, every single class. I was in the building at 5 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't leaving to 10. There was numerous nights I was sleeping on the couch in the gym because what was the point in going home? Because that was more time and where I could be sleeping. And pretty much got very, very, very close to burnout. Started really, really disliking CrossFit, really, really disliking my own training. And then it was one of my closest friends. He just said, listen, take a week off, think about what you want to do. But if you're going to come back in this, you need to get help. And so I took a weekend off. I didn't take a full week off. And then realized I definitely did need help. So kind of reached out to there wasn't that many CrossFit coaches around that stage, and there wasn't many people that were qualified. So reached out to a few of the guys that I was quite close to, and they said they'd take a few more in classes and help me out. And then after a couple of months of that, got my first full-time employee, and then we've just built from there.
What's it like when you do everything and then you bring someone in? Is it are you standing in the corner, glaring, making sure that everything's going the way you want it to go, or were you okay with releasing it?
I definitely wasn't okay. I suppose it goes back to me being a control freak when I was a coach, and not letting athletes do what they wanted to do and stuff. And it was hard to let go, but probably over the course of maybe 18 months, I think I realized that to be a good manager, I had to set in my own head what was the minimum acceptable standards, for my coaching or the coaching in my gym to be. And as long as my coaches could meet that, then I could continuously train them and help them to become better. So it was like, they don't have to do things the way that I do them. They don't have to do things the way that other coaches or, the seminar staff do them. They don't have to be perfect. It's, what do I see as minimum acceptable? And as long as they reached that, I was happy.
Yeah. There's a lot of because I say you go do the, if you have 1,200 quid, you can go and do the level 1. If you have 1,200 quid in a spare weekend, and then if you have, say you had a lucrative marketing job and you made a bit of money and you had a free weekend and 1,200 quid, you could do your level 1 and open a gym. So anyone theoretically could do it pending finances. So the result of that is that you end up with a lot of questionable coaching or questionable affiliates, I suppose. And then you also then have people who are really good coaches who might hire someone to come in or might, employ a few coaches or whatever. And then there's also that thing of well, that guy's or that girl's a really good coach, but they only take X amount of classes a week. And then you could go the other time and you could be coached by, a cheerleader or like
Yeah.
someone who tells you the time or how long is left or whatever. How did you make sure that the people that you were bringing in weren't just cheerleaders, that they were able, like that they, even if they didn't work the way you worked, that they were able to meet that minimum standard you had in your head?
So we've had from the start, apart from the first couple of guys who were just like friends help me out, I've had like a 6 month, like basically internship. So anybody that comes on to 80/20 now has to do 6 months. The first couple of months, they actually just have to integrate themselves into the gym. They don't have to coach. They don't have to do anything. They just have to be part of the community and see if they fit. Then they start shadowing coaches. Then, we'll start letting them take warm-ups. Then, we'll take the warm-ups and the cool downs. They'll take the main part of the class. And, we just kind of build and like layer everything on top. Try not to overload them with everything, and then just continuously give feedback in terms of how to better coach a group, because a lot of people are pretty good at PT. It's easy to coach people one-on-one, but if you want to coach a class of 12 to 20 people in an hour, and you want to get 2 or 3 touch points at every single person, like that's a lot of skill. That's a lot of man management skill to really, really develop. So it's a 6-month process for us to get them to what I believe is the level to be good coaches, and so far it's worked. I mean, I do have a pretty high standard of like what I expect, but they all want to meet that, and they all want to exceed it, and they all want to push themselves further, and they're all always asking about more courses and asking about feedback in their classes. And if I do one of their classes, they'll definitely always come to me and say, okay, what could I have improved on? And sometimes I'll just say, listen, it was a really good class, I enjoyed it, I wasn't even concentrating, so I don't have feedback, but I enjoyed it. And then there's other times where I do sit into a class and I'll do the class, purposely just to take notes in my head in terms of what could be done better and what they need to improve on.
Do you do all the programming?
Yep.
Always.
I'm starting at the minute. So Dave and Emma, my 2 full-time coaches, want to get into the program a little bit more. So they're taking one-on-one clients, sort of like individual programming. So I've started to teach them elements of that. I've also started to like really write forward and advance our main class program. So when I get back from the games, my plan is that, I'll write, let's say, a block of like 4 months. And in that block, I might leave, on a given week, 2 days out, and they have to start filling it in a way that makes sense to the overall program. And then I'll give feedback on that. But ideally, I've been doing this for a decade now. Ideally, at some point, I would like to have oversight on it, but not be doing all of it.
Yeah. Does that go for everything? Like, would you rather not be coaching?
No, I love coaching. I love coaching. Like I've never ever stopped coaching main class.
Yeah.
I'm maybe one of the few coaches still about that likes to coach elite athletes and get them to a reasonable level, but I also love to coach normal people, and I've been pretty vocal about this over the years in terms of like where I get a kick out of, like you were at strength and depth, and that was a big thing for me qualifying a team, because that was kind of like my last rung on the ladder to like qualify every category for the games. And it was huge for me, but it still doesn't compare to, you get an email from someone who said they've cut their grass for the first time pain free in like 20 years. Or, you get somebody comes in and says, thank you so much. I had the confidence to get a new job. I got my new job. I met my new partner. I'm going to marry her in a year. You can actually, you can genuinely as a coach change people's lives. And, getting a team to the games is, getting these crazy genetically gifted freaks to be 1% better, every month kind of thing. But in main class, I just love the thing that you can change people by like thousands of %. You can literally completely transform their lives.
Fuck, I can't remember what I was going to ask. That was good. That was good to listen to. So like 80/20, like, so I was at regionals in like 2018 as a spectator.
Yeah.
As if that is quite.
I was like, how did I miss your talent?
Yeah. So when I was there, I remember being like, you kind of look at the leaderboard and you're like, oh, there's a lot of 80/20 written down here. And then like, you kind of like, historically, it's like there's like common names like that you see. Like, where is that? Just like someone happened to come into your gym and it just kicked off this kind of like, I guess, culture or whatever, or like that you like, because you said you fell into elite coaching or whatever, but like you seem to have really made it your own. And I'm curious how it began, and how that first instance didn't just become like a fluke, you know, like where like, oh, that happened once and then that was it.
Yeah. It's probably a pretty simple process in my head, and it might seem simple when I lay it out. So I was very fortunate, that I had the likes of old school CrossFitters like Barry Mayers and McQuaid. They kind of came to 80/20 in the very early days. They were following different online programs that I had a look at and wasn't very impressed with, just from my own physiology background and the amount of reading and research I'd done in coaching. And that applies right back to when I was like doing bodybuilding and stuff. And I was like, this can be done way, way smarter than this. So I just started writing programs for them, and they started doing quite well. And, then there's a regionals, regionals individuals, regionals teams, multiple individuals at regionals, multiple teams, then I managed to get tagged to the games. And kind of, I suppose, whenever I started seeing a little bit of success, I was like, I don't want to be a one-hit wonder here. So at that stage, I had a reasonably good relationship with Max El-Haj at TTT. Like, he's been my coach nearly for probably as long as I've owned 80/20. And I kind of reached out to him and was like, he's kind of become a mentor to me. And I've actually done a lot of their educational stuff. So they have a big education platform in terms of coaching. I've done it before it's been public. So like, he gives it to me and I'll like proofread it. And, if there's spelling mistakes or stuff doesn't make sense, or it's not, it's not at a level where people understand, then I'll feed back to him. And I've always just kind of like wanted to learn more. And like, I listen to and, read a lot of stuff that Yami Tikkanen says as well. There's some really smart coaches out there, like, with a huge amount. I mean, I did all of Joel Jamison's courses, the guy that does all the MMA conditioning and stuff like that. I did Andrea Spina's stuff, all the FRC and mobility stuff. So probably at that time, I realized that potentially, I was going to get a reputation because we were getting success. And, back in the early days when Filthy 150 wasn't as big as it is now, it was just, like the weekend team competition. I think we won it like 4 or 5 years in a row. And I was like, okay, I don't want to be a one-hit wonder. So just constantly reading, constantly doing education, constantly reaching out to other coaches. I have no fear of touching base with Max and saying, hey, I've got an athlete who's really struggling with this. I've tried this, this, and this. I'm lost. And he'd be like, okay, sent me a video or sent me this. And then he'll send me back and he goes, I had no clue, but I sent it to, Mia, who works for him. She says they need to fix this. And then, that's something that I've learned that I can take forward if I see it again. But, I by no means think that I know everything or even close to everything. So I'll always reach out whenever I'm stuck.
And what's like, so Northern Ireland seems to have like disproportionate level of elite athletes to just anywhere else, really. Like, if you look at teams and just look at regional semi-finals, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What? Because even like just proximity to you or your gym or whatever, like geographically, it doesn't make sense. Like, how is it because of, like, do you take any like responsibility for that or any credit for that, or do you just think it's just coincidence that your gym was there and they needed somewhere to go and they went there and blossomed there?
I don't know. I've thought about this a lot over the years, and whenever everybody in every career that you do, everybody questions themselves. I'm sure you ask yourself from time to time, am I a good teacher or am I a good podcaster? And I'm the same with being a coach, and I've asked that question a lot, and I don't have an answer for it, because unless I was to get an alternate reality and put all those athletes in a different gym and see if they could achieve the same thing, then I can't really answer that question. It's kind of like the thing, Max and I always talk about this whenever, you get an elite level CrossFitter who finishes 3rd or 4th at the games, and then they change coach and now they become 2nd at the games. Everybody's like, oh, that coach must be amazing. They must have done this, that, and the other. But actually that athlete doing anything could have potentially made it to 2nd place or 1st place, so it's very, very hard, I think, to quantify really, is the coach the thing that's making it. I think maybe I was maybe part of creating an environment in Northern Ireland of competitive CrossFit, of like driving it to a higher level, because I wanted to achieve things. I wanted, when I first opened the gym, I said I want to send one athlete to the games. That was my original thing, and so I pushed hard to do that. And whenever I saw the talent that Tag Lawless had, that was a real opportunity. Here's a kid who can actually potentially go to the game. So I think I've been part of maybe of that culture of like trying to push people that far and showing people that they can do it with the right effort. But again, could have been another coach, could have been another gym, could have been just luck that they walked into my gym. I could have been just lucky that I've been throwing out good programs, but who knows?
Yeah, I think you're being overly humble. You mentioned there that athletes change coaches, and like I suppose like one of the most recent ones that everybody saw was Catherine leaving Ben and Comtrain and going to Yami, and the training plan, and then loads of people. I remember people being like, "Oh, this is it now. She's going to win the games. Like she's gonna, like." And then like when she went into last chance qualifiers, everyone's like, "She never should have left Comtrain." And it's like, it's not that simple, I guess. And it's kind of like I get the impression like Yami's the type of guy who, might, in theory anyway, might be saying to Catherine, like, okay, we're going to go for it. Like, don't be surprised if you don't make the games next year. Like 2023 is, like there's too much stuff to fix for what you want to achieve or whatever. But when an athlete does leave a coach, and I know it's something that you've experienced, just even given the length of time you've been there, but like, obviously you worked with Emma and now she's with Red Pill, and you work with Mickey and he went to Decacomp and now he's at Red Pill. Like, how do you react when someone comes to you and like you've worked with them and helped them, or even like Tig is with Training Think Tank now, isn't he? Absolutely. So like when they come to you and say like, hey, so I'm going to go and join such and such, are you like, oh, fuck off, I've invested so much time in you? Or are you like, yeah, no problem? Like, how do you, maybe, I guess, how do you react out loud and how do you react like internally when you're sitting on the couch at home?
I don't think I've ever reacted out loud really badly. There probably is a little bit of internal, wondering, what you did wrong or why they want to leave. Some of those decisions have been mutual decisions. Mickey and I are still friendly. We still have a good relationship. I haven't a bad word to say about Mickey. We left on really, really good terms. I felt like potentially I'd helped him as far as he could go in the sport. He felt the same. So, that was very much okay, dude, like, good luck, and he has come down to D20 numerous times since we haven't been coach athlete and trained and worked out. And so Tig's the same as well. At a stage, I was cutting down the amount of athletes that I had. Because I think at one stage I had like 42 athletes and I was still running 80-20. So I was like, I need to cut this down. And Tig had made the games, and I was like, okay, if you really want to make the games as an individual again, I think maybe you need a bigger organization, somewhere you can go to training camps, maybe somebody, who has more, time and effort to put into what you need, kind of thing. And again, I was at Rob's wedding with him. Like, we're still good buddies, there's no animosity or anything there. But yeah, there's always an element of, could I have done something better, and for me, as I kind of like alluded to before, I think most of my issues with coaching has been empathy. I'm quite a black and white, logical, data-driven person. And, when athletes cry or athletes like get frustrated, like, I don't massively understand it. For me, it's like, okay, here's a process that you follow to get better. I understand what your weaknesses are. Do X, Y, Z, and you'll get better. And it's a whole lot more complicated than that. And I have learned that over the year. Like PD's sister Jennifer, I think she's like lead sports psych for like British athletics. So like she's right at the very like upper echelon of sports psych. And I've learned a huge amount from her about myself, because she's fed back in terms of like how I manage athletes better and how I manage myself better, and also how to manage athletes, so like I'll touch base with her again, I'll reach out to an expert and go, hey, I'm having this issue with an athlete, they're not committing to training, or they've got these issues going on, we've had MRIs, there's no injury, but they still say they're in pain. And she'll give me, various different ways and cues and tactics to like get around that. So I've definitely learned over the years. And also, she was the first one who pointed out that I'm really introverted, and that spending a lot of time with people actually like pulls all of my energy away. So I very, very often, if I'm like, at competitions like strength and depth, or if I go to the games, I'll take a week off after that, where I literally probably don't see another human being, just walk my dog and kind of reset and get myself back. But she was like, there's people who are extroverts, and when they're around people, they get all their energy pulled into them. And then there's people who are introverts, and then when they're around people, they get all their energy pulled out of them. And I'm one of those. So again, over time, I've just learned how to manage that better as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. That introvert extrovert thing is interesting. I always found, because like for years I thought it was like introvert meant shy and extrovert meant like boisterous or whatever.
Yeah.
And then similarly, I found out that like it's like no, if you're an introvert, you're exhausted when you like come home from a party or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you're an extrovert, you're like buzzing. You're like, you know, like fucking, I want to go back or whatever. And I was like, oh, so I'm an introvert. It's like, I get like, I'll talk to someone for 2 hours or whatever. And then I need to like just sit down and like just not think or talk or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, my wife is the opposite. Like my wife, like she'd hate driving home. Like she'd ring me driving home just to talk. Like she just doesn't like, you know, like it's weird. Yeah, it's weird. Not, I don't mean she's weird. I mean like it's weird, the introvert extrovert thing.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people do have it misunderstood in terms of what it is. You know, I could quite happily stand in front of like 3,000 people and, you know, talk about CrossFit and talk about, you know, my philosophy on it, and like it wouldn't scare me to get questions from everybody. You know, and people go, "Oh, you must be so extroverted to do that," but actually, that's not even close to the truth. It's just I'm confident in the subject matter and I don't mind talking about it.
Yeah, like I've done MCing, and if I tell someone I'm a bit of an introvert, they'd be like, "But sure, you host a podcast. How can you be?" It's like, but it's not. It's not what it means.
Yeah.
I've forgotten what I was talking about again. Oh yeah, I want to say thanks. Well, I want to say thanks for a few things. But one thing that you did that stood out. So I didn't know you at all, and I think I had and it's something I've been working on, is trying not to have like baseless assumptions about like people or things or scenarios or whatever. But like I'm still shit at it, to be honest. But I had kind of an assumption of what you'd be like. And then I brought out the episodes with the semi-finalists.
Yeah.
And I brought out like one with the team and one with PD, which would be pertaining to you, I suppose. I brought others as well, but
yeah.
And I think you sent me a message. I can't remember if it was a message or an email. But you sent me a message and you were like, it was a really long message. I remember getting the message and I knew it was you straight away. I think it might have been from the 80/20 page, maybe. And I knew it was you straight away, and my stomach like dropped out through my arse. I was like, I've done something wrong. Like that was my perception of you, was like he'd only contact me if he was going to call me a prick or like you're fucking asshole, why, or whatever. So I saw this big message and I was like, oh fuck. And I like clicked into it and I was like, oh, when's he gonna like say the thing that I did wrong? And I was like reading it through, I was like, oh, there's actually nothing. I was like, okay, now I need to actually go back and process what's being said, because I was like skim reading, being like, I was looking for the word fuck or dickhead or something through it.
I don't know whether to laugh about this or cry about this. That's my reputation out there.
But it's again, it's baseless. It was based on absolutely nothing. I had I had nothing to go off. You have no like online presence at all, so I had nothing to go off. So I was like, I assume I had this assumption, and I suppose a lot of it was probably based off the video of Louis with the misstep in was it quarterfinals or the open or quarterfinals thing. So a lot of it was probably based off that. It was like, fuck, this guy's a psycho. But then after,
but it calms down very quickly, you know.
But that's the thing. That's a lot of people said. So all of those athletes, the 4 athletes and PD, I talked to about that scenario, and they all said the same thing of like, yeah, no, it's like, and it reminds me of my dad. So my dad has like, he's a fucking Burka boiler when it comes to temper. So he'll be totally fine. He'll absolutely lose it. But then like 5 seconds later, it's like nothing happened. And it's like, are we okay? Like, is everything all right? And like the guys were saying that you're the same as that, but that like those 5 seconds, at the end of those 5 seconds, it'll be like, right, here's what we're going to do. And there'll be a plan, and everyone else will still be reeling over what happened to cause the reaction. But in the time that it takes for the reaction to happen, you'll have already formulated a plan while like effing and blinded or whatever. You'd be like, we've got 25 minutes to do such and such thing, and I've moved those classes and I've done whatever. But yeah, I wanted to thank you for sending that message.
Very welcome.
Because I think it's rare. So I get messages from time to time, but it's rare to get a message from someone. Like most of the time, if I get a message, it's something just like in an inane chat or whatever. But sometimes I might get a message saying, oh, that was a good episode. But like you went out of your way to, I suppose, praise the content and the effort of the content, which meant a lot, and it was nice. And then at Strength and Depth, I went So I found myself, I was saying this to the team when I was talking to them, but I found myself just kind of drawn to them. I think a lot of it's because of Louis, because I kind of knew him a bit and I've kind of chatted to him a bit. So I was kind of interested. And then because I knew him a bit, I kind of got interested in the others. And then just kind of found myself drawn towards them, like a bit of a like moth to a bulb kind of thing. And yeah, I went back. I found myself back behind the ropes where I shouldn't have been. And I went up and I was actually went to talk. I think it was Louis was standing at the barrier, and I went to talk to him. And I was like, "Oh, I actually don't think I'm supposed to be here," but fucking nobody said anything. And you were like, "Oh, I'll get you a coach's badge or like wristband or whatever." I walked off and got me one. So I wanted to thank you for that as well. But also, while there, and maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like you maybe trusted me more, maybe more than you should have, but you trusted me more than you would have other people, or you let me in a bit more, I think, than maybe even than you wanted to. But like you kind of said things and reacted in certain ways to things, and I was a bit like, geez, I really, like, again, this could be me misreading you in the first place, but I was like, I really wasn't expecting. I expected you to be more guarded, I think, whereas you were very open and very honest. And I think that's why I was so determined to talk to you in this kind of format, because I was like, geez, if he just says that stuff off the cuff randomly while sitting in the stands, what would he say if there's actually thought put into the questions, rather than me just being like, so do you like CrossFit?
I suppose, you know, like I'm very much like, I like to treat people how I like to be treated. And, you know, I really appreciated what you guys did you did for the guys, you know, in terms of their podcasts and, you know, helping PD with his profile and the team. And, you know, if somebody's willing to go out there and put their effort into, you know, helping drive Irish CrossFit, to driving CrossFit as a global thing, like you're doing, you know, and interviewing so many people, I will give them as much of my time as I possibly can, and they will have access to me whenever and whenever they need, kind of thing. If people don't help me out, then I'll just like kind of stay away, stay guarded, don't kind of interact. But, you know, for me, it's very much a give and take. You know, if someone is really, really trying their best and putting in effort to create something very cool, which I think you are, then yeah, man, I'm always going to make myself available and try and help you out in any way that I can.
So you said a few things at Strength and Depth that I want to pull at. So okay. One of the things that you said that you're not very. I was planning in my head. I was thinking, oh, I got a great video yesterday of the team reacting to each other and jumping around and stuff. And I was like, we happened to just kind of end up sitting, like, just the way the things transpired, we're just kind of walking together, and you were like, oh, I'm going to sit over here. I was like, grand, yeah, I'll sit there as well. And then I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to get a clip of them doing the workout and a clip of him like going fucking psycho? And then I was like, I like casually was like, do you get wound up or whatever? And you were like, no. And I was like, oh, like, again, I was like, what fucking perception have I got of him in my head? And I was like, no. And you were like, no, like, what's the point? You were like, I used to, but like, they can't hear me. So what difference does it make? And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Is there a reason why you chose to watch there from the stands and not like behind? Because you would have actually been able to engage with them, because I think that was the relay one. So you would have been directly behind them. Is there a reason why you don't? Is it like the haze in the barn kind of thing?
For me, with my athletes, I mean, my job's over by the time we get there. You know, I'm really there as a person for confidence. That, like, those guys know how to warm up. They know how to activate muscle groups. They know exactly, you know, what lifts are going to hit before they're doing, you know, the snatch. You know, everything is like dialed in. All their nutrition's dialed in. I'm kind of, in my eyes, I'm like not even really needed. You know, if I didn't turn up, they could still execute. So for me to then be back behind and starting to give them feedback and potentially get emotional, or, you know, start telling them to do a different strategy than we've already planned and we know is a good strategy is I think quite risky. And I think, you know, if you're a coach and you're really confident in your athletes and their level of talent and the work that they've put in and the training you've put in with them, and you know that they can execute, I mean, I just need to sit in the stands and watch them execute. There's nothing I can say or do, I don't think, that's going to really improve what they do on the floor.
Yeah. Would you have been the same if, say, in the last workout they were like 5 points out, and like, would you have had the same attitude, do you think?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I had a spreadsheet. I think I showed you it on my phone.
Yeah, no. So I'm going to pick at that in a minute. But another thing before we get to that, another thing that you said that I was like, "Fuck, that is so impressive." So you said, you were like, "Oh, this one means a lot," and I was like, "What?" In my head, I was like, "What? Like sit beside me? Like what? What means a lot?" And you were like, "Oh no, the team qualifying means a lot," and I was like, "How come?" And you said, "It'd be the full deck. Like it'd be a teenager, a individual, a team, a masters, and adaptive."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Fuck, that is so impressive." And then I was kind of like, I wonder how many times that's been done. Like how many individual, like singular coaches. I assume think tank, but there's like a team of coaches there. I assume like, you know, I assume it's been done
By an
before,
organization, essentially. Yeah.
but I don't know if one person has done it.
I don't think anybody has. I've chatted to a few different coaches, and I don't think that anybody
Because
said that.
I asked Brian Friend because I was
Yeah.
like, I mean, he'll know.
Yeah.
And his immediate response was, he goes, "No, and I don't think it's a good idea." But he thought I meant at once. Like he thought
Yeah.
I meant that one person would do all of those things in 1 year.
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, it's not a good idea." And then I was like, "No, like over," and he was like, "Oh, okay." He said, "Oh yeah, it's definitely been done." And I said, "But by one person."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh, actually, I don't know."
Yeah.
I really don't like it's remarkable, really, because like so I haven't spoken to Ben and Joanne, and then the team and PD. Like they're all incredibly different from each other. As in, like what they're doing is incredibly different. Their stage of life is incredibly different. Their physique, their body type, their genetics, all of the stuff. They're as different as they can be from each other while doing the same thing. And then
Yeah.
you have like the needs of the individual, as in like, you know, Joanna's quite a stressful job. Kerry is quite a stressful job. Like Emma has, you know, like she's in a great environment all the time because she's
Yeah.
there. But then you have that thing of like, could she be there too much? Like you have to manage that side of it. And then you've got like Louis, who's like kind of cutting his teeth in this sort of thing, like quite recently. And you've got Jim, who's coming from another sport and, you know, is managing other things and has a
Yeah.
family coming. And PD, who's uh too old, too tall, too fat. You've got Ben then, who's like just different for like innumerable ways.
Yeah.
Like as in like he's had, you know, a stressful time of it. He's have like a fairly recent diagnosis. It's basically a new sport.
Yeah.
He's new to it as well as it being new, and the field is kind of constantly changing and developing. Like, is training all of those people, because it's interesting then when you were saying earlier on about how that you kind of, I suppose, grew from being unempathetic into empathetic. Like that must be incredibly important to be like that now with this group, because if
Yeah.
it wasn't, they'd be fucked and you'd be fucked.
Yeah. Absolutely. And each person's different, and it's just getting to understand them as a person and not an athlete. That really is the thing that kind of helps out with what they need. You said about Ben's a pleasure to work with. Like he's had such a tough time, but I mean, you've chatted to him. He's a really cool guy. Like he understands his condition inside out. He knows his body. And he is really, really driven in terms of what he wants to do with his life. Given his diagnosis, Joanne's probably one of my easiest athletes to actually coach. She is like a little robot. So whatever I tell her to do, she just does. She just executes. She gets it done. If I look at my coaching platform, she's always the one with 100% like of everything done. Just gets it done, goes home, comes back in, gets it done, goes home. So she's relatively easy to deal with. Not so easy when it comes to live competition because she gets really nervous, and that's another level of
And she gets nervous when there's a fucking microphone in front of
yeah.
her. I can
Yeah.
only imagine what she'd be
Yeah.
like in Madison.
Yeah, well, like Madison last year. A lot of people don't know this. Like, so she qualified in the COVID year. So she should have been 3 times. But Madison last year was her first in-person individual competition, the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can imagine the nerves that I was dealing with, and it was just her and me that went over because there was all the restrictions. Her family couldn't come. So, but I'd said to Max at TTT, I was like, listen, can I get over a few weeks early? I know Joanne's not a TTAT athlete, but like you're one of my best friends. Any chance? And he was like, yeah, come along. So training with Knowles and with Travis Mayer, with Alessandra, with the TTT team, I think that kind of like pulled her nerves down a little bit. And okay, these guys are superstars, but they're still normal human beings. the team are a fun one to work with. You know, it is managing each individual. It's also managing them together as a team. You know, I can kind of from the outside see when one person's getting wound up, and sometimes I'll just call a set short, or I'll say like, let's take a break, or let's chat about this. But they have an amazing energy. I mean, I'm sure you've realized that, like, you know, training with them, being around at Strength and Depth, there's like just this kind of like aura or energy that comes off them. And I think that's just been built over the year that they've all been together. I mean, they finished 6th when it was the online qualification, and they missed out by 1 spot. And it was like, okay, do you four really want to commit to this? You know, and I sat each one of them down and probably had 2 or 3 hour conversation with each one in terms of, you know, what they're willing to give, what I felt that I needed from them, what they need to improve, and they all committed to it. And they're just a pleasure to work with. PD, you know, Strength and Depth was very bittersweet for me. PD is my longest serving athlete now, and he's also one of my closest friends. You know, so over the years we've just become really, really good friends. Like, we hang out, we chat, we, you know, outside of the sport. And so, you know, to not see him realize his goal was very, very, very tough and quite emotional for me. I'm maybe made a little bit worse by the team doing so well, because it's like, you know, I have to be happy and celebrate the team, but I also have to be completely gutted for my friend who, you know, hasn't achieved what he wanted to achieve. So yeah, that was a tough experience, that one. But I just tend to treat each person as an individual, you know, try to work out what's going on, ask a lot of questions, you know. So if Kerry comes to me and says, you know, I don't want to do this session, okay, why do you not want to do it? You know, and very often we just get to the fact that she's close to burnout and she needs to not train for 3 or 4 days. And, you know, she's been working night shifts, she's been doing this, that, and the other. Emma sometimes struggles with confidence issues, you know, and she said to me, hey, I'm struggling with this snatch. I'm not going to even get anywhere near this ladder. And I was like, okay, you know, like, do you need one-on-one? And she was like, yeah, like, can I get like 2 or 3 hours, you know, the week before we went over to the semis? And I was like, yes, wait, come on. We'll sit in the gym on our own, and, you know, you can snatch away and I'll help. And it seemed to work. You know, she finished the ladder. Lewis and I probably clash a lot. You know, we've got very different personalities, but we've learned to manage it, and we actually have a lot of similar opinions, even though he doesn't like to admit it. But yeah, and Jim's just a pleasure to work with. Jim's always just happy. Like, he's literally walks into the gym happy, leaves the gym happy. He's always happy. He's just like kind of like the little rock in the team that everybody kind of knows will always be in good form, and you know, never gets down and never has really a bad session.
It is remarkable though, because like they're so unassuming, or they're so like, I don't know. It's like they're not like they're more. Maybe it's because they're more relatable. Maybe it's because they're more like just unassuming in general, or they're just kind of like, maybe it's because they kind of came together by a bit of a fluke as well. Like that, it wasn't like whatever 2 years ago. It was like, right, us four is kind of like, you know, Louis kind of went in, you know, like kind of subbed in, and it just kind of worked. But like, I don't know, like, I'm kind of like, I'm reluctant to use the word special, but there is something special about them. There is something, like, they're incredibly likable. But like, yeah, like when I look at them as a team as well, like, it must be hard to manage them. Like, as in, so you have that aspect with Kerry of like the potential burnout. Like, she has like, it's a time demanding and energy system and emotional, everything kind of, it's just a draining job.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's rewarding and everything else, but like, it's hard. And then Jim obviously has, so they have a baby on the way.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on there. But like, looking at them as a team, it's like, it's so fucking odd how well they work together. As in, so looking at them, say, pre-workout, you've got Jim, who looks like he's like high on weed and just happy to be, like, he's just like dancing away, just couldn't give a fuck, like, and he's just so relaxed. Like, he was turning around talking to me.
Yeah.
I was like, man, like, you should be ready to smash your head through the rig. Like, why do you even know that I'm here? Like, you should be totally blinkered. I think like Lewis is like, looks like he's gonna rip someone's head off and shit down their neck. Like, he's like properly like I would argue overly hyped up for every workout. Like I feel like
Lewis is what I would call like a true competitor. Like he wants to win and win well, and that's in his head all the time.
Yeah, he's intensely focused on.
Yeah.
Like Jim would be just kind of like, dancing around, and Lewis would be like shouting stuff, but like to him, and I'm like, that is not a receptive audience. Like, it's just like washing over him. But yeah, it is. And like the girls, like, it's funny, like you talk, like say watching you with them afterwards. It's so funny to me, the fact that you're saying, or the fact that like other people that you believe, or that you have a perception that other people have said you're not a good coach, or that you train them too hard. Because like, I guess the thing of it is that if you train them too hard, they wouldn't be where they are. First of all, like they would have, like Kerry wouldn't have got, like if she was in danger of burnout and you were training her too hard, you would have told her to fuck off and pick up the bar, and we all know how that would have ended probably.
Yeah.
But as well, there's like I saw so many things at Strength and Depth where I was like, geez, he really fucking cares about them. Like you were so happy for them, and just the general sense of camaraderie that you'd expect to be within a team stretches beyond the team. And like watching you watch them be announced with members of the gym and friends of theirs and stuff, it's like, it is remarkable. Is that something that has been present, or is it something that, I know you've been friends with PD for years, so that's probably different as well, but like, is it something that's been present, or is it something that has kind of happened with this group of four specifically?
Do you know what? I think it actually comes from our gym community and ethos. Like no one's ever had an ego at 80/20, because, and a lot of people don't know this, and I'm sure there's coaches out there who are going to disagree with what I say, but like, this is my philosophy on it. My athletes who have all, qualified to the games or qualified to semifinals, every single one of them in probably 80% of the season had to do 5 of my main classes. They had to work out with my community, in my gym, with the normal members, because I truly believe that that program is really good, and also that you just need good, hardcore CrossFit to be an elite level competitor as well. Now, obviously, they do a ton of work on the side, and they need to really focus on themselves individually and all their weaknesses and stuff. But I think that ethos and that that community aspect to it, and having such support in the gym, and having their family and their friends and everybody really rooting for them, and the amount of messages that came through when they did well, and we had pictures come with everybody in the gym watching it on the big screens, in the middle of the gym floor, and I think that just builds a really good team ethos. And the other thing with me is, kind of what I said to you, why I reached out to you and sent that message. If anybody gains my respect, I'll give it back 100-fold, and it's hard not to watch those guys put the graft in. There has been blood, there has been tears, there's been tantrums from me. There's been times where I've said, I'm done, I'm out, I'm not doing it anymore. But, you come out the other side, and I suppose adversity builds like strong friendships.
What would make you say that you're out?
Just getting frustrated with like levels of effort, or as I said, like,
is that actual levels of effort, or your perceived levels of effort, do you think?
Probably a little bit of both in different times. I've been around the sport long enough now, and I've worked, closely with Max and all the TTT guys enough to know what's required in the sport to be at the elite level, to make it to the games. And when people start to fall short of that, and when I've told them 3 or 4 times they're falling short of it, then I start to get very frustrated, because I'm like, you told me at the start of the season this is what you wanted to achieve. I'm telling you this is what you need to do to achieve, and you're not doing it. And that can be kind of frustrating. And say, like, I can throw the head up from time to time and go, I'm out, but then 10 minutes later I'm like, right, sorry, I apologize for that. Like, I shouldn't be saying things like that. But it can, the training environment, especially the closer you get to competition, can become quite heated and quite stressful. And especially, when you're working with things like the worm, and everybody's under fatigue and everybody's knackered and nobody wants to do another set, but the set before wasn't good enough. That can be tough to deal with. And, everybody gets emotional and everybody like lose their temper at various points. I wouldn't say, in fact, I think the team would all agree with me that, every single one of them at one point lost their temper with me or another team member, quite a few times.
So the spreadsheet. So yeah, you showed me you mentioned it, and I was like, all right, that's a hyperbole. Like he's exaggerating. And then you were like, I actually have it here, and it was like, it was on your phone, and so it's basically you did a spreadsheet. Um, I'm sure you've done it other times, but this time specifically, you did a spreadsheet of all the workouts that the team were doing, and
Yep.
their projected finishes,
Yep.
and the projected finishes of other teams in the competition to work out like their, I guess, like minimum requirement on shit ones and their maximum potential on strong ones, and where they could push and where whatever else. And that's something else that I talked to Brian Friend about, because I was like, when explaining who you were to him in order to give context to what I was saying, I said, this guy's gonna fucking love this. So I was like, do you know actually what he did? I was like, he had a spreadsheet on his phone of all the workouts and where the team would finish and where the other teams would finish. And he was like, fuck. Like, so he was like, his understanding of it and mine is that not only does that show like a remarkable level of insight into your team and how they're going to perform, but also all of the other teams, with a lot of which have like a who's who of who's who on their team. Like you've no way of really knowing who they are apart from the data that's available. But you obviously like have an incredible insight into those teams, how they're going to do. And like with remarkable accuracy. It's not like you're like, oh, I've got, it's not like the gambler who only tells you about the big win. Like,
Yeah.
it's a remarkable level of consistency in correct predictions. It like, do you just, so is that like you go through, okay, Nordic, and you look at the team members and you look at their open performances and you look at their Instagram and you look at that? Is that how you do it?
Don't really use social media. I mean, because everything, as said before, everything's fake on it. So basically, I got every single team that was in strength and depth, ranked them out on their quarterfinal performances, then re-ranked them out on their open performances and combined the results. Then looked at the average score of each team in terms of like, where they ranked on each workout that I felt was a very similar test from the open or from the quarterfinals to the semis. And then from there, just kind of said, okay, here's where I think, 3 or 4 teams are going to beat you on because of their scores in this. Here's where, potentially, you're going to do very well. You were backstage, you heard it, like I said on the rope climb workout, guys, 95 points, you're going to win this one, or you're going to come second. You can't beat Navy Blue, but you will come second in this workout. And, they came in second place, and over the weekend, I think I only ever had them 7 points out of where, of their total score in terms of where they should have been. But that's just me. Like, I don't sleep, man. I sleep maybe 3 or 4 hours a night. I'll get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, sit in a spreadsheet, work all that out. And some of it's for me because I just like to understand the data and the numbers. And, I'd never want to say to an athlete or a team, yeah, you can definitely make it. And then the finish, like 30th, that's just not something I would ever want to be a part of. So when I'm crunching numbers, and the team know how logic based I am and how data driven I am, especially because I'll break down, like I'll sit with open performances or quarterfinal performances for repeats, and I'll like time out every single thing, like every transition, every break, every chalk break, and then formulate a plan to make them do the workout, 2 or 3 minutes faster, just by being better at doing the workout, not by being fitter. And so I just kind of applied that. And then like the team all said, that confidence like leaks into them because they fully believe, because I fully believe that my data says that you will qualify for the games. And, if you're a team who, they did fly under the radar, nobody expected them, you had all the semi-final talks and shows on strength and depth and who was going to qualify. And like our name was never mentioned once. And I didn't have us sitting in third, I had us sitting in fourth, but fourth by a comfortable margin. And actually we were third by a comfortable margin. But to me, that confidence, I think like that pushes into the athletes. And when they go out on the floor, having that confidence allows you to execute better because you're like, I can do this, I will do this, I will finish in this position. And I believe that having that kind of like certainty from my side does help them a little bit.
And say you have that certainty of the rope climb workout where you're like, you're going to finish second, and then they buy into it and they believe and they say, we can like let the shackles off and go for it and commit, knowing that we have the haze in the barn, that we're fine.
Yeah.
And they've said themselves that it gives them that confidence, and that they have so much trust in what you say because you don't mince words, and you don't say things unnecessarily. And, you won't say, like Jim told me a story of, you rang him one day and said, "Why the fuck are you putting in these shit scores on such and such a workout?" And he was like, "What?" And you were like, "You can lift that, so start lifting it." And he was just like, okay, Neil, no problem." Like he was like, he just started doing it because he was like, you wouldn't have said it if like it's not, you're not like, go get him, champ. Like there's you don't say things for not just for the just for
no,
saying
I'm definitely I'm the anti cheerleader type coach. I keep my words to a minimum. I tell them what they need to do, and I think that works. It works for them. It might not work for other athletes. I mean, I'm sure it definitely doesn't, but it definitely works for those guys.
Well, what about the flip side then, where like just say at the games, hypothetically, there's a workout and you're like, oh fuck, when you see it on paper, do you say to them like, okay, hopefully like 35th? Like how, or do you just say nothing? Or do they know then if you don't say something that you are saying something? Like how do you approach the ones that won't be confident?
I always have stuff to say, but like, I'll literally tell them, if it's a 35th position that I want, I'll say, listen, there are 5 other teams who want that 35th spot, that are, 36, 37 to 40. You need to get it. So for me, every point or every execution is like separate to the one before or the one that's coming next. And, I will try and be as upfront with them as I can. Now, I was a little bit, and I think maybe only Kerry realized, I was a little bit like, I told them that they could do really well in the endurance event, the first event at Strength and Depth. That was like me kind of like saying something untrue to start with, more because I want them to go in with confidence and like get a reasonably good score. And they came 8th in that. So I was like quite chuffed for that. I had them down, I think, as 9th. But they came 8th. But I was telling them, you guys can come top 3 in this. Definitely, you just go out there and crush it. And so there is the odd time where I'll like, say stuff that maybe isn't completely true if that's where the confidence is needed. But I would say 95% of the time they're getting the truth of what I expect them to do. And I think that also is a good thing because, if their coach, was telling them, listen, 35th is a good finish for you in this workout, and they come in 33rd or 34th, they're probably happy, and they're probably ready to go on to the next workout where I've told them they can finish 12th or whatever. And, we're under no illusions that we're not going to win the games. We're not going to podium. We're not going to do anything like that. But, I have set them a target of, getting into the top 20, and staying there. And the dream result would be if they scraped into the top 10. And you never know what can happen, but that's where I'm at with it. And I've told them that, and I've, vocally told them that, top 20 is what I expect and what I think they are capable of. And I do believe that. So hopefully they can do it.
And when you're setting those expectations, so I spoke to Andrew Hiller recently, and the subject of like fame and popularity came up around athletes. And I was kind of saying how, like someone like Chandler Smith, I was like, he's someone that I really like and I really want to do well because he's like, he just seems kind of cool and he's funny and he just seems like likable. And I think because he's like ripped as fuck, you expect him to be incredible.
Yeah.
And I was like, he often kind of flatters to deceive. Like he did really well at that Mayhem when it was a sanctional or whatever. And, but he's never really matched his expectation with performance or with execution or whatever, whether he was with Max or whether he's with Ben or whatever. And his response came back of like, well, it's the coach's job to set realistic expectations. So it's the coach's job to say, I guess what you're saying of like, there's no point saying like podium or bust if you know that they're maybe going to finish inside the top 25. Like there's no point in saying that. Yeah. But then you also, I suppose, don't want to just be like, well, sure, we'll go and have a bit of fun with it. Like you do want to have some kind of impetus, because otherwise, I suppose, if you come back from Strength and Depth and you say, yeah, like we've made the games now, that's great. Sure, we'll just see what happens. Like you're setting yourself up for whatever 6-7 weeks of like going through the motions and not wanting to be there because, in comparison to what could happen. Is it hard when you're setting those expectations? Is it hard to be honest with yourself and to be honest with them and to be honest with whoever it is about like setting an expectation that can be met or can be surpassed and not setting yourself or them up for failure, while also not setting yourself and them up for a slog of a pre-games training schedule?
For me, no. Like I'm just very, very honest all the time in terms of what I believe, and I've crunched the numbers on the teams in different various semi-finals, and I genuinely do believe they can be, in the top 20. So for me, it's not tough, but like I can definitely see how coaches do sometimes. I don't know, like give people more confidence, or I have this thing where like I've had numerous athletes over the years reach out to me and say, "Oh, I want to go to the CrossFit Games," and I'll send them some tests, and the tests will come back, and I'm like, "Dude, you're fucking not making the national fucking baby CrossFit league. You're never going to the game." Like guys that have reached out to me, and I'm like, "Okay, what are your numbers?" And they're telling me that their max snatch is like 68 kilos, and I'm like, these guys are snatching that unbroken like 30 times. Someone needs to tell these people that that their expectations are way beyond. And again, we've probably got into a society, and this is probably a bit away off CrossFit, but where people are just offended by someone telling you the truth, but yet, if a 12-year-old kid goes to his parents and says, "Oh, I really want to play for Man United," and he can't kick a ball with 2 feet, the parents will go, "Listen, son, you're not playing for Man United ever. It's not going to happen. Stay away from it. If you want to go and play in a Sunday league somewhere, you want to shoot for this, definitely go and get on your local Boy Scouts football team." But they will definitely say you're not playing for Man United. But yet, coaches nowadays in CrossFit or in other sports, if they say an adult athlete, "Hey, you can't make the games," you're being a complete dickhead apparently, because you've just told them the truth. And to me, I'm like, I'm actually, if that's what perceives me as a dickhead, then fair enough. But I think I'm doing justice to the person and their future, and their mental health and everything that goes beyond that in terms of like trying to achieve goals. I think that's a better way to be than to give somebody false hope and let them shoot for this goal and then fall so far short that they don't even know what their next goal is going to be.
But do you think that if you had say someone just with no like specific sporting background, just like active but no specific sporting background, no weird injuries, no weird, just like normal but not a genetic freak, like just a normal person, came to you at like 20 and was like, "I'll do whatever you say and I want to go to the games," and like they had none of these tests that you're looking for, do you think if they just did everything that you told them to do that they'd be able to do it? Like say even go to semifinals? Or do you think that it's like that there is that maybe the extra 1% that a lot of these athletes have is internal, like it's a genetic thing?
6 to 8 years ago, I would have said, yeah, a lot of hard graft and someone could probably, get the semis, regionals, potentially the games. I think what this season has shown, and I've chatted to quite a few other coaches about it as well, this is the new iteration of CrossFit. This is the CrossFit athlete that started it whenever they were 8 or 9 and can walk on their hands for fun. They can snatch, without even thought. It's now a subconscious process. And I think that's why you've seen so many of the big names, like David's daughter and Koski, and, even from my perspective, PD struggled quite a lot, and didn't finish as high as we wanted them to. But you're seeing this new iteration of CrossFitter coming in who this is their sole sport. They have been doing it for a decade. Their skills are dialed in. Their fitness is insane. Because of what they've been doing from a very, very young age, they've actually developed the capacity in all the areas that they need before they're even competitive. And then when they become competitive, it's just a case of layering on strength and fitness, strength and fitness, strength and fitness. So maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, I would have said, yeah, nowadays, unless you've been doing CrossFit from a young age and you're very genetically gifted, you're not going to make the games. And I think that's going to get even further and further out as we get on in the sport, where you're going to have, how many people make the games that are like, over 6'1", 6'2", how many people make the games that are over 100 kilos? Eventually you're going to see the CrossFit athlete is going to be, on the male side, 5'8", 5'10", 85 to 95 kilos, same limb lengths, same torso lengths, all just looking pretty similar. But again, if you look at most professional sports, that's what happens. Cyclists look the same, professional soccer players look the same, guys who play the same position in the NFL all look the same. And, as the sport develops, I think unless you're genetically gifted and you've been doing it from you're a kid, I don't think you'll make the games.
Do you think that the age profile will get younger then as well? Do you think, like, say, if you have someone like Mal who comes up who's done it, or Justin who's done it from a young age, and then gets to, say, like 27, 28 and is burnt out or ground down? Or do you think that the coaches are good enough to keep the longevity there to go with the success?
I I don't think it's to do with the coaches not being good enough. I think it's just a very attritional sport. You know, when you're backstage at the games, you know, or regionals, I've been there, like, you know, most athletes are walking around with numerous scars on shoulders, elbows, knees. You know, it's a very, very attritional sport. And the further you go to the top level, the more volume you have to put in because, you know, semi-finals is tough, but the games becomes, you know, a test of survival and a test of recovery, not so much a test of fitness, I think. And, you know, if you're going to do that for 5, 6, 7 years very competitively, but you've been doing it for like 10 years prior to that as a kid, there's only so much wear and tear your joints can take and your ligaments and tendons can take. And, you know, even mentally the grind can take. But again, I don't think it differs much from most other sports. You know, I think the average retirement age in the NFL is like 25 or 26.
Yeah,
you know, so I don't think it'll be any different from that. I think it's just going to be, this is a very attritional sport, but as it grows, you can make a lot of money very fast as a young person in it and then get out.
Yeah. So the sport is obviously changing as well. So if you have a different type of athlete coming up, you're going to presumably see the programming reflected and the competitions reflected, and you know there'll be changes. Like we've already seen it where if you look back at the 2012 games, you can kind of look at it and think like, God, I'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like it was just very different, I suppose. Or you had, you know, was it Darren Ellis was on and he did the sectional or whatever in Australia with like a fireman's mask on. That was one of the workouts. You know, it's just like different.
Yeah.
Do you think that while the sport changes, like, are you ever concerned with the professionalization of the sport? Like, are you ever concerned with, is the judging good enough? Should the judges be paid? Are the events good enough? Should they be different? Should all the workouts be standardized? Or is that the kind of stuff where it's like, fuck it, like whatever that is, I just have to do what I'm doing anyway?
I do think about stuff like that, but it doesn't really like sit of prime importance to me. I mean, I definitely have a thing with the judging. I think the judging needs to be professionalized more. You know, you can't have, like, we had an appeal, you know, for our team that put it in and actually got like accepted as, you know, yeah, that judge shouldn't have done that. So I think one of the problems is you're asking volunteers, and, you know, not to put judges down, but a lot of them are like, you know, big fans of big names in the sports, and you put them on a floor and ask them to judge somebody who they've looked up to for 5 or 6 years, you know, the likelihood of them calling no rep on something that's 50-50, you know, is very, very small. But everybody should be, you know, in a position potentially where they're being judged very fairly by people who understand the movements and what's required of each athlete. So I think judging definitely is going to have to be, especially as more money comes into the sport, you know, because this is people's livelihoods. You know, the difference between in making the games and not making the games probably in 10 years could be hundreds of thousands of pounds of sponsorship, you know, so they're definitely going to have to do something to address that. How? I don't know, because I imagine it's hard for these events to make money, you know, and if you're going to start saying, oh, we have to pay judges or we have to do this, then yeah, that's a hard one. I don't know where technology will come into it, or maybe just the programming gets like a little bit, you know, smarter in terms of, like, you know,
less gray area.
I like the fact that strength and depth, you know, they took away, you know, jumping over the bar for the burpees. Yeah, you know, that kind of removes pressure from a judge, because you're not trying to see, did they take off on 2 feet and land on 2 feet or what. You know, you could step over if you wanted. And, you know, first and second place did very different strategies. You know, on that workout, PD came first and stepped over the bar. I think Reggie Fassa came second, but jumped over the bar, you know. So did it really make a huge difference to performance? Probably not. Did it make judging a whole lot easier? Absolutely. So I think there's things they can do like that, but the sport's definitely in an evolution and a change phase at the minute, and I'm kind of just excited to see where it goes. You know, like you mentioned, you know, 2012. I remember watching 2010 games with, you know, Jason Cleap and Rich Froning, you know, where they were doing Amanda, and they're all missing 60-kilo snatches and like nearly throwing them into the crowd. And I'm like, you know, a semi-finals athlete nowadays wouldn't miss a 60-kilo snatch, you know, ever. You know, they'd probably muscle snatch just for fun. So I can only imagine what the sport's going to be like in 10, 15 years.
Do you think you'll be around?
I think I'll still own 80-20. I'm not too sure where I'll be in competitive coaching at that stage. I don't know.
If this year goes to plan, like if everything happens the way that you think it will, with, say, Joanne, Ben, the team, is that like, I have the full deck now, I'm definitely not a one-hit wonder, or is it still like no, like I can get the full deck again, or I can do something different? Like, is the hunger still there, do you think, to go next year?
I'm talking to a few different people about potential opportunities of me working for their organizations. I don't know yet. I'm not going to like put any details out there. But yeah, I think maybe this might be my last year as me coaching under my kind of own brand of whatever I do and coach athletes. I'll still keep my current athletes. I would never let them down or like, ditch them. So I'll keep coaching my individual athletes and team athletes until they want to stop. But I made a call that once I got the full deck that I wouldn't be taking on any more new clients. And probably in the last like few weeks, I've probably turned down about 50 different requests, obviously because of the semi-finals. But I made that commitment myself. I've let my own fitness and health probably like diminish a huge amount, to prioritize coaching and the athletes. And, I would like to get back to really enjoying my fitness and training and CrossFit and, potentially maybe competing at a master's level, who knows. But I did make a commitment to myself that if I got the full deck this year, I would take a small step back and reduce the level of input into competitive coaching. So I intend to follow up on that for at least a season anyway, but then who knows after that.
Yeah, could get itchy fingers, itchy coaching fingers.
Yeah, like, I mean, but I do enjoy coaching main class. I enjoy the community we have at 80/20. I put as much, probably more effort into my main class programming as I do to any individual program that I write for, elite level athlete, because to me, that's where the real bread and butter of like programming comes, because you're programming for, somebody who has just finished their foundation course, who has no exercise history. And I'm also programming for PD Savage and my team and Ben and Joanne, who are games athletes, and I'm trying to get a response out of everybody that suits everybody and gets everybody the results that they require. So it's a hard thing to do, main class program. And I think anyway, a lot of people don't put, maybe as much of a emphasis on how hard it is and the graft that goes into it. But I definitely spend 3 or 4 hours a week on each week of programming for main class to make sure it's where I want it to be. And I love that part of the process and love coaching the members and hanging around the gym. So, it might be enough for me. I've been asked this question a few times, on a couple of different podcasts, and my original goal, remember, I think I said earlier, was to send one athlete to the games, and I struggled a little bit whenever Tag made the games. I had a little bit of depression because it was like, okay, where do I go now? I've just achieved what I wanted to achieve, and then other people started mentioning stuff like, could you get a team? Could you get an individual about masters? And then the adaptive category came up and Ben, wanted to go for it. And that became the next goal. And at the minute, I've achieved it all and there's no depression. There's no sadness. There's nothing there that makes me feel like I need to go and find a new goal at the minute. So I think I'm actually pretty satisfied. I don't feel like I have to prove anything to anybody. I don't feel like, whether people like me or they don't like me as a coach, or they agree with my methods or they don't agree with my methods, I feel like at the minute, in the UK and Ireland, I've kind of put myself out there as one of the guys that, was more successful than a lot of other coaches. So, if people agree with that or don't agree with it, I don't really mind. But in my mind, I was okay at what I did.
Okay at it, yeah. Yeah. Look, we'll finish with a quick fire.
Okay.
So strength or cardio?
Strength.
Barbell or dumbbell?
Barbell.
Thrusters or burpees?
Thrusters.
Coach or compete?
Coach.
Team or individual?
Team.
Proudest moment as a coach?
Ooh, that's a quick fire one. That's hard. There's two.
That's the last one, so you can take your time
There's,
on that.
there's two. The year PD qualified as individual, the COVID year, was amazing for me. It was like such a good thing to have a friend do that. And then obviously the strength and depth moment that you saw, like I can't hide how proud I was there. So definitely those two, like, sit up at the top, like beyond anything else.
Yeah. Well, look, it's been great getting to chat to you. I think, you might say you're okay at what you do. I think you're phenomenal at what you do. And I think I was struck by your relationship with your athletes from watching it, I suppose, at Strength and Depth, but then going to 80/20 and seeing the community that's there and seeing how everybody wanted to hang around before and after, and everybody felt like comfortable, and everybody enjoyed it, even though it was absolutely fucking horrible workout. Everybody enjoyed it, and I think I said it to you at the time, but like it really was cool doing a workout with. I say doing a workout with you, doing a workout with the team, doing it like Joanne was there, Ben was there, everyone was doing the same warm up, everyone was doing the same workout, like slightly altered or whatever, but everyone, there is that sense of like, you know, I guess you can watch the team doing it and you can be like, oh, I'm going faster than them, and then be like, and they have an extra 40 kilos or whatever on the bar, or, you know, like we talked about at the time, how you can see them at strength and depth and be like, oh yeah, they're pretty quick. Like, oh, that other team is quicker or whatever. Like, geez, yeah, maybe they need to speed up a bit. And then you see them in person, you're like, fuck, they are really fast. Like, it's like I can't even hold a candle to them. But yeah, I think you've just built so many special things, as in like the relationship that you have with PD and the team, and like all your athletes, and then the community that you have, and the reputation that you have, and I think I'm glad I got a chance to get to know you a bit, because I just think you're fantastic in a lot of ways. But
thanks very much.
Yeah, I'm excited now. I'm excited to see what your group of 6 can do in Madison. I think it's going to be exciting. And just a reminder as well, if people want to go, you can go to Just Giving and you can search 80/20 and donate. And if you donate anything over a $5, you're entered into a draw to win one of 2 pairs of rad shoes, a 6-month Whoop membership, and a free 4.0, 6 months of Rain, and a £50 hybrid academy voucher as well. And every donation counts. So like you can donate £10 twice, that's 2 entries, or you can donate £200 twice, that's 2 entries, whatever you want. People have been really generous so far. So
we appreciate
that's going to run all the way up.
We appreciate the help that everybody's been given, the support we've been given. I appreciate you putting that together. Like, it means so much, because, you know, all anybody has to do is like go on to booking.com and look at hotel prices and accommodation prices in Madison, and it is completely off the chart crazy. You know, so we appreciate all the help that everybody's been given. The only thing I probably have to finish on, and you're maybe not going to love me for saying this, is that you and I did the workout on Saturday and we had to sit out around.
Yeah,
because I'm the most unfit CrossFit coach, and maybe you have a little bit of work to do as well, do you?
Yeah, I think it's the most unfit CrossFit coach and CrossFit podcast host met and did a workout
and had to sit it around.
I was so fucking relieved when you said that. Like, okay, so just because I told this to Jim and he got a good laugh out of it, where we were setting up and it was like 20, it was like a partner workout, 20 hang cleans, I go, you go, but you share it. So 20 hang cleans, 100-meter run each, 20 burpees shared, 100-meter run each, 20 shouldered overhead, 100-meter run each, and then you rested. And I thought it was 5 rounds every 6 minutes, but it was every 5 minutes, 6 rounds. So we were warming up, and I did like a few. I was like, I'll probably go 60. I was half, I suppose, like ego being like, I better go 60. I haven't cleaned 60 in fucking 2 years, and I was like, oh, I'll probably do like 60.
You moved pretty well. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go 62. I was hoping it'd go a little bit lighter.
And that's the thing, that you were like, you set up for like, I was like, he's heading for 50, I think, with the warm-up weights. I was like, he's probably heading for 50. I was like, I can bail, like, and go to 50. And I did like 3 just before we started the workout, and I was like, oh, they actually felt pretty good. I think I'll stick with that. And I was like, wait a minute, this is a trap. There's a lot of like rounds in this. And then I said to you, oh, I actually might use your weight. I might just do 50. And then you were like, no, I've changed. I'm doing 60 as well. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, me too. I'm happy to do 60. And I was fucking dying inside. But yeah, you were like, we did like rounds 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Skipped 4 and did 5 and 6. Yeah. And you were like, oh, it was like I was still doing my shoulder overhead. In my head, every one of those last 5 reps, I was like, split jerk it, but my body just didn't cooperate, and I just kept doing like push jerk, and I was like, okay, the next one I need to split jerk, the next one I'm not going to do it, and I'd still push jerk it. And then I heard the coach go like 10, and I was like, what the fuck is he counting down? I have another 5 reps to go. Like, how is he? And then I put the bar down. You're like, we might just sit out this one. I was like, oh, thank fuck.
Yeah, because you went to take the weight down. You were like, let's just take the weight down. I'm like, fuck that. Let's just not do the next round.
Yeah, no, there was a big relief there. That was a big relief.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for having me up there and for being so accommodating in London and in Portadown. It was great. It's great to get to see where everyone
man.
came from.
Appreciate all the help, and hopefully we can get like maybe a short group podcast from the guys over there. You can kind of like chat to them about their experience actually out there. If that's something you want to do, it'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely.